first, I'd like to introduce Laura Thomas to talk a little bit about the Nebraska World Affairs Council and maybe even highlight today as Omaha Gives.
Yes, welcome and greetings to everyone. This is so exciting. This is our first official international Zoom webinar. So thank you, Dr. Gupta, for joining us and kicking this off for us. As Patrick said, today is Omaha Gives here in Nebraska. And while we are a very new nonprofit that just received our official 501c3 documentation, we couldn't enroll officially into the Omaha Gives, but we are fully enrolled with the Omaha Community Foundation for donations as we begin to build an exciting program series for the next chapter of the Nebraska World Affairs Council. And for those of you joining, I would just like to read our mission statement and our vision statement so you better understand our goals for now and in the future. The mission of the Nebraska World Affairs Council is we are a brand new 501c3 nonprofit. We're a nonpartisan educational organization, and together with partners, we're dedicated to providing pathways to broaden and deepen public awareness and understanding of international affairs, engaging Nebraskans of all ages and communities with the world and with each other. And our core values include diversity, inclusion, and respect, nonpartisan education on global affairs, collaboration, community development, cross-cultural learning and sharing of ideas, personal and social empowerment, and responsibility. So we are grateful to have you all today, and we look forward to a very exciting growing webinar series during this COVID, where many of our events prior were all in person. We're going to navigate the unknown, but it is so exciting that we have the technology to be able to connect locally and globally during this time. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Laura. And now I'm going to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Madhukar Gupta. He is Additional Secretary to the Government of India. He's posted in the Department of Public Enterprises and has, among other things in his portfolio, the corporate social responsibility agenda, and handles the corporate governance, performance appraisals, these public sector utilities. As a trained engineer, he has a good grasp of all of that, but also a very, I'm going to say, liberal arts education in the best sense of the word, an MBA, a law graduate, a PhD in development economics, and then you were actually one of the Mason Fellows, both you and your wife, earning your master's in public administration at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, and your master's in public policy from the Maxwell School at Syracuse University, one of the top in the world. You also have interesting experience in posting in the UN, doing some emergency management advising there, and have done emergency management in India as well. So a very broad background, and I could go on. Your CV is quite extensive, but that gives a sense of some of the postings that you've had. I want to start though with a personal question, and that is, how are you and how is your family doing? I know you have parents who I actually love to go and see every time that I'm in India. How are they all doing now under this lockdown situation that's going on?
Well, thanks, Patrick, for your question and also for your genuine concern. Well, it's been very lonely for the last 2 months. I'm holed up in Delhi. My wife and my son, who likes to believe that he's a filmmaker. So he was in Mumbai and he came a week before India shut down. And they are together in Jaipur, whereas my daughter, as you mentioned earlier, she's in Chicago. And the moment I get up in the morning, the first thing that I do is do a reality check of what's going on the corona front in Chicago, in the US, in Jaipur, in Delhi, uh, to be aware of what's going on at a personal level. Then I also I'm fortunate to have my father who's around 88 and he's an electrical engineer, and my mother who's about 85. So for their sake, I thought it would be better to be around. And I try and spend some time with them every evening. So, and as all of us are aware that people in the older age group are more susceptible and, you know, they, they really need to be isolated from external influences. So it's been tough. It's been eerie. Delhi roads are full of people. Greater Delhi has a population of 25 million, and you hardly see people on the roads. Uh, it's been very unusual times. So as a family, we've tried to stick together. We've been talking to each other within India, outside India. A cousin of mine, he got infected by corona. He and his father and also his daughter. So that was a bit scary. Uh, Fortunately, the morbidity rates in India are much lower. They are about 3 to 100 corona patients. They're even lower. I don't know how much of credit we can take, the government of India can take, but then the morbidity rates are lower even in places like Bangladesh or in Africa. So the turf is very, very different. It has impacted, corona has impacted people in different parts of the world. They have different levels of immunity against corona. Uh, one thought was that those regions of the world which are endemically impacted by malaria uh, have resistance to corona. I'm not an expert on corona or on you know on medical sciences, but then there is some correlation. And even in India, it has impacted different parts of India differently. Kerala, Tamil Nadu have a morbidity of less than 1%. Globally, if we see South Korea, Israel, Germany, they have handled this menace much more efficiently, so to say. So take the turf is different. Different countries have handled the situations differently. Uh, the at a family level, if you ask me, my daughter has been trying different recipes. Sitting there, she's been calling her mom. She's been going online and trying Indian. She's vegetarian, so she's been trying different dishes: American, Mexican, Indian. Uh, and those of us who had forgotten to cook have again, moved back to our culinary skills. After 2 months today, I had some ethnic Indian sweets, and it was fun, having those sweets after 2 months. So practically, you find all the confectionery shops going out of business. So you are left to fend for yourself. And those of us who were used to going to office every day, so what do you do? There have been a lot of issues between families, between husband and wife, between children. It's been tough to manage children, My niece has three young boys, and they've been finding it very tough to handle those boys because they have so much of that. Likewise, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, interesting dynamics. So
Yeah.
one
There's a lot of
one
Bollywood movies about that dynamic, so I won't go there. Thankfully, I have great relations with my own mother-in-law, and my wife does with my mother, who's on the line right now too. So let me ask you about those shops that have been closed, and we're seeing the same thing here in the U.S. But how is India's economy going to start back up once the lockdown is lifted, which I guess is going to be May 30th, right? After that, how does the economy start back up?
Patrick, now the government of India has allowed the provinces to take certain decisions in a decentralized fashion because uh, while one size fits all is not possible in a huge country like India. For example, Delhi today the shops have opened. So except for the so-called red zones, so shops, business establishments have opened up. Offices also are functioning with lesser strength. Basic issue was transportation. How do you bring people to office? How do you bring people to workplace? Metro was not functioning. The local buses, the local transportation was not working. Autos, cabs, Ola, Uber, they were not functional. So now things are getting back on track. But then the issue remains, if you see the graph of the growth of corona in India, it's practically exponential. And if if community transmission starts in a big way, then possibly it would have been very difficult to handle. So to that extent, we can we can claim that we handled corona fairly well. The casualty, the known figures are 3,000 odd in the whole country of India's size. But then economy is going to be a big worry. We don't have firm data migrant workers who work in different parts of India, especially the metros. But a rough estimate is about 20 million. Now, how do you get 20 million back to work and when?
Right. Mm.
One way of providing sustenance to them is through Narega, so that they work as wage laborers on different developmental programs within their own community. So the provisions and the policies say that you have to initiate community development works close to the place of residence of people who want work. So rather than provide doles, to put people to work, but then whole issue of return on investment on Narega works, we also need to change the government laws, changing whole Narega works in this country.
So just to give a little bit of context there, NREGA is the government scheme, the government program that is creating jobs in the rural areas for some of the rural people. But as you just said, that return on investment question, I've heard many critiques that they're digging a ditch and then they're filling in the ditch, and it's like just creating work just for work's sake. We're asking some of the same questions about infrastructure redevelopment here, and what we can do to have some return on investment for some of the money, the stimulus money. How much money is going to the stimulus in India? What is the money, and what is that money going to go for once the economy opens back up?
So the economic package which has been declared by the government of India is something close to $3.7 billion. Uh, a lot of it goes for incentives for the small and medium enterprises, also remission of loans. So it has many parts to it. Uh, some kind of cash transfers also will take place to farmers or to wage laborers. But where the rubber hits the road, eventually we have to put people to productive work. So they have to create value in the economy, and they have to create wealth through goods and services in the economy. One sure bet in the Indian scenario is that we focus on savings. Our economy also has grown because of savings. Indian economy was driven by savings in addition to growing demand. So initially we focused on saving. So we again have to go back to savings. So we save the maximum that we earn and deploy it, invest it in ways which are more productive. Yes, demand will take a hit. Marriages, gatherings, events, dispensable, expendable expenditure will go down.
Mm-hmm.
So luxury, travel, tourism, conferences, etc., are going to
Mm-hmm.
go down. So, so people are going to cut down on bills, fine dining, hospitality. So, so people will basically care more about their basics. Today, a major question which is on the minds of wage laborers, also their service providers, their employers, is how to pay their wages. They haven't they haven't earned for the last 2 months, and they are expected to pay the full wage to these
Mm-hmm.
workers. But how? And many of them have thrown their hands up and they say that it's just not possible. So possibly the workers will have to take a part of the hit. So some haircut has to be passed on to the workers also, in addition to the employers. So the even if even if employers want to pay, how do they pay when they have no resources? So the
I'm
biggest
starting to see a few questions coming in. One from Warren Hill, one of our board members. Are the skies cleaner? And I saw that Kieran said that there's less carbon emissions, and so yes, the skies are clearer. I also saw a picture of the Ganges River, which is also actually one of my friends in Varanasi, Dr. Padilla, who you've met, said that the Mother Ganga is cleaning herself. So by just having the flow of the river, there's a lot less pollution. So another question. Oh, thank you, Kieran, for clarifying. National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. That's NREGA. That 20 lakh crores package is somewhere around $300 billion. Is that what we thought before, Madhukar, you and I were talking?
at somewhere close to 300 billion.
Yeah. In the USA, many people are talking about and worried about economic devastation and also the expansion of authoritarian government policies. Are you having some similar concerns in India? Asks my friend John.
Uh, it's a difficult question. It's a tough question to answer. But then there are different thought processes, different messages, different kinds of articles being written in the media. Uh, even the lockdown, for example, the leftist government in West Bengal has been very critical of what the federal government has been telling them. Likewise, the leftist government in Kerala. So, so they didn't want to be dictated by the federal government. So finally, eventually, the federal government said, "Well, you take a call on how you want to dilute, how do you want to dismantle the lockdown." But there is there could be it there could be temptations for any government to be more uh, invasive, to be more intrusive into the space of citizens in India or elsewhere. Uh, at the same time, when the chips are down, you hear different noises. So that also could prevent governments from becoming very uh, you know dominant scenario, so to say. So because in a commanding position, you can you can use more powers. But when the economy is not doing well, when you are pushed to the wall, So I think it will be a tough call for those people in government who want to arrogate powers, more powers to them. So I think we need to be more humble and more democratic and engage with the people on the ground much more than earlier because there has to be concerted effort and not only in one country or not only in India at a global level. So people, the biggest thing which I've seen in disasters or in emergencies is you see humanity against nature. So when I went to the Gujarat earthquake, I was working with the UN development program, and they put me down on the first day as their team leader. You see humanity as well. Often I would come across people I can't speak their language, but then you work with them. You speak a global language. So the entire humanity has to work towards global revival, so to say, because it's going to be really difficult. For example, my father, he said something very profound. He said, I could never think that something like Corona will happen in my lifetime. So out of the blue, something has happened. We were not prepared for it. So this is the time not for hair splitting, not to find fault with each other, but to sit down and find solutions to problems and help each other.
This is a great call to action, and I appreciate your saying that. Let me ask.
And my heart, Patrick, my heart
Yeah.
goes out to your colleague who's trying to raise funds for Omaha
Mm,
to help
mm,
people in in this difficult time. So
thank you.
people are having similar situations across the world.
Yeah. What has been your experience thinking about just the humanity of it and some of the we've heard this is the biggest lockdown in human history, what's happening in India today. What have you seen in terms of people either following the rules, or maybe you've been in Delhi and you've seen some things that haven't necessarily followed the rules? Tell us about those experiences.
No, initially they were defined. Initially, people were defined. They would fight with the police. They would fight with the law enforcers. But after a few incidents, when people realized that the threat was real, Corona was there to stay. Corona was
Mm-hmm.
real.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I've often seen when I tell people that, can I come and see you, say hello to you? They said, no, I think we'll wait. So
Hmm.
people are it's really scared to
Mm-hmm.
meet each other. Even neighbors are scared. Now the police is just sitting and sipping tea or coffee. So people realize that it's a real threat. So law enforcement to that extent, the need to enforce law has come down substantially. As somebody who's been working with the government or governmental agencies for a long time, so I have seen this shift. Uh, I think I think uh, we people are hopeful, and I don't know. I would still feel what the US has done. They have not locked down their country totally. They've still tried to, uh, they've still tried to find ways and means to figure out how they can keep their economy running. I still think that it was a smart move on the part of the US. People can agree and disagree,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, where you find the incidents, impacting a lot of lives, yes, you have to take a call. But then there are there are states like California which have handled Corona fairly well. So there could be there could be a difference of views, but then I would still feel that, as people have been saying, life and lives. So you have to balance between
Mm.
life and life. So once the economy goes down, it takes a while for the economy to get revived.
Yeah.
So so my sense is at least it will take 6 months to 1 year to get back on rails, and
Hmm.
it's not easy. And to what extent? So it's a tough question, and I think all of us will have to put our best foot forward. People are trying to find answers which they may not have now, but we'll cross the bridges when they come.
I think
Corona also.
we're struggling with the same thing here in the U.S., trying to find answers about when, what's safe, what is is the curve flattening, all of that. I want to open it up to some other questions. Warren, you ask, I see your COVID numbers in India are stabilizing. Is there a serious issue with underreporting? Now, this is one thing that we also have dealt with here, that because people are not being tested at the levels, then they're probably underreporting the actual incidents. Do you think the same thing is happening in India?
I think as an administrator, what I've seen is if somebody has a problem, he will not keep quiet. If somebody is sick, if somebody is impacted by corona, he or she is not going to keep quiet about it. So reporting, under-reporting, I don't think there are major issues. Anybody who's sick will report. Also, there's not much you can do about corona. If 97% people are getting well, like other viruses, it is people get cured over time. So I wouldn't put too much of premium on testing. Testing also, situations in Europe are different. Situation in US is different. See the cost element of testing, overzealousness in testing. There's a big lobby which wants to buy medical equipment, spend on medical equipment. I would be more focused on treating these patients. So testing. So I wouldn't go overboard in testing people, or I would feel I wouldn't spend much time on issues of reporting or under-reporting.
Okay.
I would feel that people who are impacted will obviously report that they're not well. So I would find figures fairly accurate about corona patients, even in India.
Yeah.
So there is no reason to disbelieve the figures which are coming out.
Kieran has also added here, many are symptomatic patients, right? Awareness is low, infrastructure in India is limited, testing facilities have to be expanded. So thank you, Kieran, for that, for weighing in on that. This is one thing that a lot of us at the beginning of the lockdown were watching the, especially urban poor, going back to their villages and thinking, if they're taking coronavirus back to the villages, the rural health system is going to be overwhelmed if the cases go up too much. And luckily, I don't think I've seen as much reports of that, but I don't know what the reality is now. I want to open up to any other questions that people have as well.
I'll just
yeah, please do, please.
I'll just mention one thing. As an administrator, in 1988, we got a busload of women infected by AIDS from Mumbai to the district where I was working in Tamil Nadu. And at that time, people thought it was contagious. Nobody wanted to come near to these women. And we had to find our own paradigm, how to handle these women, and tell people that, well, it is not contagious. So also, there is a certain element of stigma attached to these patients. The moment the family members themselves get to know that somebody is infected by corona, their behavior changes. And obviously the behavior of neighbors, other people in the community. There are stories of people getting back to villages and their own kith and kin back in villages refusing to let them into the villages. So those kind of things also are happening. So we hype, the media hype, the element of fear which has been driven into the minds of people across the world associated with corona. I think we need to work on that.
Yeah, I think that fear and stigma is a big issue. Dr. Chambers, you sent me a message about the economy opening back up based on some recent studies of Holland and Sweden. I'm not as familiar with that. Do you want to ask that question yourself, please?
Sure. There was Holland has a big lockdown like India, and Sweden, of course, has remained fairly open. Yet, if you look at the decrease in the economies, while Holland has more, it was 29%, but Sweden was 24%. So the question is, even if you open up, people have to come out. And the question is, will they? That the point of the article was governments don't kill the economies, the virus is killing it.
Well, the fear, right? The people who aren't coming out
It's
because
the
of
fear
the fear
of the virus
Mm-hmm.
that's killing. And I'm just curious what he thinks about India. That's a very interesting study between the Netherlands and Sweden.
Well, we've been watching what's been going on in Europe also, and I've spoken to quite a few expats living in the US and also in Europe. For example, I called up one of my friends in Vienna, in Italy. So Italy also, they had some hotspots like Milan, likewise in other parts of Europe. Well, if in any disease, if you have a morbidity of less than 1%, I think that is tolerable. As an administrator, I would feel comfortable opening up the economy. I would really focus on how we handle the patients, how we handle the triggers, how we handle the transmission of this disease from one end to the other end. And at the same time, those people who are affected by corona, what quality of treatment do we give them? At the same time, open up the economy in a limited way, progressive way, to the extent possible, because there's no guarantee how long corona is going to continue. And I would feel that we don't need to be overconfident, but then having learned in these 2 months how corona has kind of panned out in India, we need to grapple with it. We need to fight it out. We need to limit it, contain it, and find ways to revive the economy and also to drive the fear of corona out of the minds of people in India and outside India.
Thank you. Other questions, please? I'll ask again about the urban slums. And having spent a lot of time in India, I know that social distancing is nearly impossible, and some of the basic issues like hand washing that we're hearing about are very difficult in some of these areas. How do you see this coronavirus playing out in some of those areas where there is difficult health disparities and difficult living conditions?
I think what corona has really underlined is the need to be more hygienic. So this is something which people at the lowest level of the economy or society have now started understanding. So this is one of the positives of this situation. So post corona also people will learn to be more hygienic. We had this infamous plague in uh, Surat, one of the textile hubs in Western India. After the plague, things really improved dramatically. So people, once people have a real taste of what's going on, I think I think they will remember the lessons for a long time to come. And once habits get reversed, people tend to continue with the reverse happens. So once they are taught to wash hands or to be more hygienic, I think things will be better. Can you just give me 1 second? This is
Yeah. I'm going to
20 minutes. Karan, थोड़ी देर?
ask Kiran. You are in Jaipur
Yes.
now, right? And
Yeah.
what is the difference in your experience seeing the lockdown and the coronavirus in Jaipur versus what you were experiencing when you were in Delhi?
I think it's quite different how the metropolis and the smaller towns have reacted. Well, Jaipur is a red zone, part of it, particularly the walled city, because of many factors, number of houses, the density of population is very high. But in rest of Jaipur, the closure has been quite effective. It's opening up now gradually little, and some of the units have started functioning. Some of the shops have opened up. Our government offices started functioning from last 20th, of course with 1/3 of staff. Now we are there. We call only people who are urgent. But yes, school, colleges, malls, restaurants, everything, transport, everything else is closed. People have complied with it, and although the numbers are increasing, it is a matter of concern. Yet, globally, when you compare it with other countries, India seems to have done better, claiming a better recovery rate with lesser death rates. But I think we need to go a long way, both in terms of building up the systems of hygiene and also continuing social distancing, because COVID-19 is something which I feel the cure is not very close. Even if we get to a vaccine or a medicine prescription, the production to cater to the entire world is going to take long.
Mm-hmm.
By the time it comes to India, it will take some time, even after we are successful in that.
Mm.
But in metropolis places like Bombay, which is hit very hard, and Gujarat is bad, Chennai is bad. Those states, I think, where again, a lot of migrant labor is there. There's a floating population. It's almost like New York, and it's a financial capital. It is bad. I think when we went into lockdown, there was very little anticipation about how the migrant labor is going to behave. Because when panic strikes and they run out of money, they run out of their wages, they run out of work, they wanted to get back home. Although many, special trains have started, special transportation is there, but we have reports of many of the laborers even sitting journey on foot for thousands of kilometers, which was humanly almost impossible. So I think that was quite a concern which has touched us all, and but still, where one is, and we have to, learn to cope with this crisis. We have to help each other. We have to see how life we can function with minimum of our resources, and how we make this world sustainable. Yes, some good lessons we have learned from COVID. For example, being at home, there has been a greater social bonding, greater family bonding. Although the families which are spread like ours, we meet on Zoom, but still, nevertheless, homemade foods. I don't think so. Children thought they would live without outside food. But now, yes, homemade sweets, homemade food, everything, and with limited resources. And even grocery shopping is only what you need, and planning your time. I think these are some of the things, and then plus you have plenty of time. We were earlier moving in a very fast world where we always said to ourselves, oh, we don't have time for many activities. And now that we have time, it was time to hone your skills or to pick up new skills Vishnu has started cooking, I would say.
Oh, I want to taste some of Vishnu's food, and I hope you're painting, because I actually have on my shelf right here. I have one of your paintings right there.
Oh, how nice. I'm so glad to see that. I'm so glad.
Well, let me ask a couple of other questions that that are coming in here. One from Akil, who is one of our incoming MBA students here at UNO. We look forward to welcoming you. Akil asks, how much estimated growth in India's GDP may we anticipate as a result of the stimulus package announced by the government? And just to make sure that I'm clarifying the question here, I think that GDP has been well, traditionally in the 6% category, but that has dropped some, and I think it dropped obviously a lot more now. But what is the estimated growth that's coming as a result of the package? Madhukar?
Patrick, I think it's again a very relevant but tough call. It's tough to kind of spin out numbers, but then there have been years when India has grown at more than 8% of GDP. So it also depends on at what point of curve are you there as far as your developmental story is concerned. You know, how much of infrastructure is already built? What, you know, what is your developmental story? You know, once the US built its own infrastructure, you can't sustain that rate of GDP growth. It has to come down. Now, having seen what Corona has done, this package is fairly big. This stimulus package is fairly big. But in addition to the numbers, how we implement this package, how sincerely, I'll give you a very simple example. Access to resources, access to the package or the concessions or the uh, incentives which have been given in the package. Do people get access to that? How soon or how fast? How do we really carry out the implementation of the package? So that's extremely important. How fast? Let us say 1.5 months, liquor shops are closed, and many people didn't have enough reserves of liquor. So what poor guys, they were sitting at home and they were also not having access to liquor. Now, once the liquor shops opened up, now the government collects a lot of excise on the basis of sale of liquor. Moral issues apart. Now, when the liquor shops opened, there were queues. People forgot about, social
I
distancing.
saw that. Yeah.
Now with a cell phone, and if you tell people to book online, everybody cannot use the internet. Computer literacy is still limited. People at the lower end of the socioeconomic, uh, you know, spectrum. So but you have cell phones. Everybody knows how to use the cell phone. What prevents you from giving the number of the guy who handles the local liquor vend? You can always call him up, give him your address, and tell him, hey, this is what I want. So keep things very, very simple without complicating. But doing things online still is difficult in a country like India. So we need to simplify and get on with the business. Till such time we don't dispense the incentives in the real spirit in which they have been rolled out, we will not be successful to the extent that we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we implement this package is extremely important, and we need to be innovative. So different states will find different paradigms of implementing this stimulus package, economic package. But then I think a lot of challenges remain, and the biggest challenge is in how we implement it.
Got it.
So
Thank you. Thank you. Let me run through a few more questions here, if it's okay with you. One, JC, who was on the line, I think she's still on the line here, is one of our star therapists, counselors at UNO, and we especially thank her. I know Lori Arias, who also is on the line, and JC have this tea with JC every week for our international students, and she does such great work for all of our international students and visitors. So I want to make sure to get to her question here. What can the rest of India and the rest of the world learn from what's happening in the state of Kerala?
Patrick, you want me to respond?
Yes, please. Yeah. I think that, let me just say, I think that the incidence, the morbidity is pretty low in Kerala. Am I right?
It is I think 0.7% or 0.8%.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is tolerable, and basically we need to keep corona within tolerable limits. As an administrator, as a practitioner, that's what I feel should be done, which Kerala has been able to do. Kiran has worked in Kerala. We need to stick to the basics and do our basics right. And as long as we do our basics right, we'll be fine. Also, there are some questions about rumors about therapies, about all kinds of treatments for corona. Well, all these things are happening in India also. India, everybody feels that he's an expert. You have different systems of medicine. So all kinds of self-styled uh, physicians, doctors, quacks, they have come out with different solutions to corona. But I don't think there's a need to buy into what they're saying. But well, there are traditional systems of medicine in India and in this part of the world which also make a lot of sense. They can be used along with allopathy.
So,
Relation
Kiran,
between
I want to highlight the point that Kiran just made about Kerala having one of the highest rates of literacy, not only in India, but actually in the world. And let me also say, being the father of two daughters, it also has some of the highest girls' education and women's literacy rates in the world. And the hygiene levels are high and precautions are being taken. I also would say, actually, my wife and I spent last Christmas in Kerala, which was absolutely beautiful. But I would say that there also is a trust in government in Kerala, and that actually goes to a question that some other people are asking. There are people protesting from Kayla Snow, one of our new board members here. In the U.S., there are some protests by citizens pushing back against government oversight and lockdowns. Has India experienced any behavior like this, where citizens are protesting against the government, or have citizens mostly been compliant, trusting that the government is doing the right thing?
no, citizens also have protested, especially the lobbies, business lobbies. Business lobbies, big business houses, they have been protesting, chambers of commerce. So people have been saying, some of them have been very articulate and very aggressive in criticizing what the government has been doing. And, they've been saying that it's like throwing the baby with the bathwater. So you can't be locking down your whole economy or your country. And the projections which were made of the number of people who will be impacted by corona and who will die because of corona, there's a big difference between the projections and the reality. So that again is a pointer to, and also a lot of, Patrick, all of us will agree that a lot of presumption. There are so many variables, so many externalities. That's it. For example, GDP. It's very difficult to put a finger on any number. It's like pulling a number out of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people, the common man, the man on the street, they have not come out in protest, but then different business interests, different pressure groups have protested in their own way. And the migrants also, lobbies for the migrants, students, media, activists, they also have been protesting because newspapers have not been reaching, online papers have been coming. So those protests to some extent have been muted. So
Mhm.
they have not been able to make more impact than they could have done in normal times.
Let me Michael Adams was one of our board members. Has 19 impacted relations between India and Pakistan as well? Between India and Pakistan.
I don't think there have been a lot of discussions. I don't think uh, we have seen a lot of collaboration between India and Pakistan over Corona. As far as the Kashmir border is concerned, we've had frequent exchange of fire between the two countries. A couple of major incidents where uh, some dreaded terrorists owing allegiance to Pakistan were killed by the security forces. In retaliation, we also lost very senior personnel in the armed forces. So we thought that there will be a slowdown in the hostilities, at least on the Kashmir border, which has not happened. Going by it appears to be business as usual. It, in fact, some people could say that there has been escalation, or some some people in the armed forces could have thought that it's an opportunity to escalate uh, confrontation between the two countries. So I don't think there has been a let up in the confrontation as far as the armed forces are concerned in the two borders. And this discussion has not really taken place over collaboration between India.
Wouldn't it be amazing if India and Pakistani scientists could work together on a cure and find the answer in some kind of a joint venture that would solve this problem for the world? And Indian and Pakistani scientists would be at the forefront together. My dream. I don't know. Uh, um,
Maybe,
go ahead. Go ahead.
maybe one day, maybe one day. A lot of it's like an artificial wall in a house. Family living in one house, and suddenly you have artificial wall in the house. It's like that. But East and West Germany, South and North Korea, or whatever. But then things harden, attitudes harden over time.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know. You never know, but then there is a lot of affinity as far as the people are concerned between India and
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of affinity is there.
I don't know that you have any insight into this because it's more a question to an American diplomat, if you will. But students like Akil who are coming to the United States to study, and he would be starting in August, is seeking a visa right now for a student visa to come and study at UNO. I really hope that we're able to get him here, and maybe not to put her on the spot, but Naraini is also here on a student visa and going for this job and such. So, do you have any insights into what's happening with visas for Indians who want to come to the U.S. or want to stay in the U.S.?
You want Narayani to respond or me to respond?
If you have any insights, Akil, I know your experience, because you and I shared this, is that the visa section of the U.S. Embassy is shut down right now in New Delhi, so you literally cannot go to get it for an interview. Am I right about that, Akil?
Yes, absolutely, Patrick. That's absolutely correct. Right now, all the routine regular visa appointments have been suspended at the US consulate in New Delhi and until further notice. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are all waiting for that to open up again so that we can schedule visa interview appointments and then, do it accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. We have just a few minutes left in our time, and I wonder, Madhukar, if you could just share any last words for us. Any advice you would have?
Patrick, on this issue of visas, I
Yes.
think it will be a sad day if the number of the education has to be encouraged globally. At the moment, US is, from whatever we saw as a family in 2 years that we spent in the US, our sense is that US is US today because of high quality education, which is given in its colleges and universities. And you guys are fairly open about it. If you want to restrict education and not letting people who want to come to US for education, I think that will be a sad day if it happens, if at all it happens.
Thank you. You are preaching to the choir here, as we say. I totally agree with you 100%. But I also work in education, and work in international education. So this is very much in my ballpark. Let me say one thing before I give you the final word, and that is thank you for the insights that you've already given to us. Thank you for what you've shared. Do you have any last, I'm going to say, advice for America from your own experience in India? What would you say to us about how either to deal with this coronavirus or to do a better job at the economic recovery that is to follow? Any advice?
It's very tough to give advice from a distance, but then I would say that we have to handle both the economy as well as the treatment of patients suffering from corona, isolate them to the extent possible, and step up the kind of medical facilities that we can step up to handle corona in such large numbers. At the same time, you can't let go of the economy because, as I said earlier, a lot of articles have been coming where they have been talking about life, the conflict between life and life. So both are important. Life is also important. At the same time, lives also are important. But the good thing is that we see the flattening of the curve in the US. What was happening in New York, New Jersey has come down. So hopefully, but then I would still feel that US has done a great job in handling a tough situation where Americans didn't have immunity to something, to a virus which erupted, which surfaced suddenly. So I would still feel that within the constraints, US has done a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And let me say, just on a personal note, that global partnerships happen when people can connect across distance. I feel even though we're far apart, we're still connected, whether it's through Zoom or WhatsApp or all of these other technologies. But I also feel very close to you and to your family. I look forward to the day that I am there in your home once again in the not too distant future. Thank you for being with us today, Madhukar, and to Kiran, who's also weighed in here quite a bit. Akil, I hope I didn't put you on the spot too much there, but appreciate your inputs too.
Sure. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Patrick, for having all of us with
Thank
you.
you all.
And look forward to having you here in India and look forward to continuing our discussion post Corona, and wish you the best, wish America the best to be able to get out of this situation as early as possible.